discuss the ways that the ideology of nationalism affected racist ideas. What about in the other regions that you discussed? What was the role of racism there? To what extent were racist ideologies connected with ideologies of nationalism?
I did not hear your entire question, I'm sorry, but I believe you are asking about the role of racism and the notion of race in these areas that I spoke about. Is that right?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. That's also an interesting question because racism, as we speak about it today, is a relatively new concept. What came to be called in the late 19th century, early 20th century, scientific racism, that is racism not as a manifestation of prejudice, but race as something that can be scientifically proven, that some people are different from others, and therefore some people are superior to others according to scientific criteria. That is a new notion. And that appears much more in Western and in Central Europe, and only gradually moves into Eastern Europe. There's a very interesting article published a few years ago by, and I forget his first name, Hagen, who is a professor in California in the United States, which compares racism and anti-Semitism in interwar Germany and Poland. Now, it's an interesting comparison because it touches precisely on this issue. In Germany, there is much greater impact of this kind of scientific racism. And you have a variety of scholars, people, some of whom received the Nobel Prizes in science, who argue that race is a scientific concept. In Poland, and certainly going even east of Poland, when people speak about differences between different groups, they speak in stereotypes, they speak in religious terms, and they speak in anti-Semitic, traditional anti-Semitic terms, to which, at times, some groups try to graft also this kind of new scientific racism. It would appear to me that this plays a lesser role in Eastern Europe, and what plays a much greater role is traditional prejudice, which has to do in large part with the great difference between the numbers of Jews in Eastern Europe and Western or Central Europe, and the socio-economic role which they play. In countries like Poland, Ukraine, Hungary, Romania, there are very large numbers of Jews who fill an entire, or more or less an entire social class, a low middle class. This is not the case in Western Europe. It is also the case. Sorry, can you still hear me?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I thought I was getting cut off. It is also the case that in Western and Central Europe, Jews have, by this period, by the late 19th century, not only been emancipated, but in large part have become integrated into their societies. And so they appear to many as being the same as everybody else. And this scientific discourse argues that although they appear like us, underneath that garb, that modern garb, underneath this Western or Christian or German or French facade, there lurks a Jew. In Eastern Europe, this is quite different, because large numbers of Jews are still living in traditional Jewish communities and are easily recognizable as Jews. Indeed, they choose to be recognizable as Jews. This is their traditional way of life. And so this kind of new scientific racism has much less of a role to play. And traditional racism, if you like, or prejudice, anti-Semitism, and socioeconomic tensions play a much greater role.